The Nintendo 64 is one of the most unforgettable consoles in gaming history. Released during the industry's massive shift from 2D sprites to 3D polygons, it was both groundbreaking and controversial. Some say it was the moment Nintendo stumbled, losing ground to Sony's rising PlayStation. But for millions of gamers, the N64 was pure magic. This was the console that let us step into a fully 3D Mushroom Kingdom and explore the vast world of Hyrule for the very first time. It gave us the thrill of 4-player split-screen mayhem in Mario Kart and GoldenEye, and some of the most iconic adventures ever created. Today, we're counting down the 30 best Nintendo 64 games of all time. Whether you grew up with the system or you're just discovering these 64-bit classics, this list is packed with titles that defined a generation. So, grab your controller, dust off that old console, and let's dive into the very best the N64 had to offer. Ocarina of Time wasn't just a big release, it was a moment. Riding across Hyrule Field for the first time felt endless, even if looking back it's just a big stretch of grass. What made it special was the sense of adventure. Time travel, unforgettable dungeons, riding Epona into battle. For many, this was the game that proved video games could be just as epic as movies or books. If Ocarina showed us how adventures could feel, Mario 64 showed us how they could play. Peach's Castle wasn't just a hub, it was a playground, filled with paintings that led to whole new worlds. Mario's acrobatics gave players a freedom they'd never felt before, even if the camera fought back half the time. It wasn't just Nintendo showing off 3D, it was Mario teaching everyone how it should be done. While Ocarina became the gold standard, Majora's Mask went in a completely different direction. A giant moon looming overhead, a clock constantly ticking down, villagers quietly falling apart. It was eerie, heavy, and unforgettable. The masks gave Link new forms, the side quests carried real emotional weight, and the whole experience felt like a strange dream you couldn't shake. Some found it unsettling, others found it brilliant. Few games defined late-night hangouts like GoldenEye. Sure, the single-player campaign was groundbreaking for shooters on consoles, but the real magic happened with 4 friends huddled around one TV. House rules, cheap odd-job picks, mines hidden in the most annoying spots. It was chaos in the best way. GoldenEye wasn't just a shooter, it was the reason so many people still remember the N64 as the ultimate party console. Rare brought something completely different to the table. It took the 3D platforming blueprint and filled it with personality, a goofy bear, a sarcastic bird, and levels packed with secrets. Collecting notes and jiggies felt rewarding instead of tedious, thanks to witty dialogue and worlds bursting with color. Add in Grant Kirkhope's soundtrack, and you had a game as charming as it was fun to play. When Rare followed up GoldenEye with Perfect Dark, it felt like they'd taken everything players loved and turned it up a notch. The story mode was more ambitious, with gadgets and alien conspiracies, while multiplayer gave endless ways to customize matches. Bots, crazy weapons, and maps designed for chaos kept it fresh long after release. It wasn't just GoldenEye's successor. For many, it became the ultimate N64 shooter. Nintendo surprised everyone by turning Mario into paper, and somehow it worked perfectly. Paper Mario had charm in every fold, a funny story, clever writing, and a combat system that was simple yet rewarding. It never tried to overwhelm with complexity, instead focusing on personality and lighthearted adventure. For players, it was proof that Mario could be more than platforming. He could shine in an RPG too. If Banjo-Kazooie was bright and focused, Banjo-Tooie went bigger and bolder. The levels were sprawling, often connecting in clever ways, and the moveset expanded to give players even more freedom. Some thought it leaned a little heavy on collecting, but the humor, creativity, and sheer scale made it unforgettable. It showed Rare wasn't afraid to push the boundaries of what a platformer could be. Most N64 games aimed for family fun, but Conker's Bad Fur Day flipped that on its head. Crude graphics disguised a crude, hilarious, and often shocking adventure. From foul-mouthed characters to outrageous set pieces, it was the kind of game you couldn't believe Nintendo actually published. Underneath the humor, though, was a surprisingly solid platformer that played as well as it made you laugh. Few games captured the spirit of multiplayer mayhem like Smash 64. The concept was simple, but genius. Take Nintendo's biggest characters and let them beat each other up. 4 players on screen, items flying everywhere, stages collapsing beneath you. It was chaotic, silly, and endlessly fun. Nobody realized at the time it would grow into one of the biggest fighting franchises ever, but the foundation was already there. Nothing brought friends together like Mario Kart 64, and nothing ruined friendships faster. 4-player races, items flying across the track, and the dreaded blue shell made every lap unpredictable. The jump to 3D gave courses more variety, and battle mode became a staple of late-night gaming sessions. It wasn't the most polished racing game ever made, but few were as fun. While Mario Kart was about chaos, Diddy Kong Racing added layers of depth. Planes, hovercraft, adventure mode, even boss races. It felt like a racing game crossed with an adventure game. The single-player campaign was surprisingly robust, and multiplayer was just as entertaining. Rare managed to carve out something unique.
proving kart racing could be more than just Mario's playground.
Everybody stay alert!
Do a barrel roll became the line everyone remembered, but Star Fox 64 was more than memes. It was one of the smoothest, most cinematic shooters on the console, with branching paths that begged for replay. The Rumble Pack debut made every explosion feel real, and the squad chatter gave personality to every mission. It was short, but endlessly replayable.
We're gonna break through that fleet! Take out his arms, Fox! Flippy, what are you doing? Hurry up!
It's impossible this way!
Donkey Kong 64 took the collect-a-thon idea and ran with it, maybe too far. Multiple characters, tons of items, and levels overflowing with things to grab made it a love-it-or-hate-it game. But there's no denying the ambition. Huge 3D worlds, loads of variety, and that infamous DK rap. For players who loved exploring, it was a jungle worth diving into.
Turok 2 pushed the N64 harder than almost any other game. The levels were massive and the weapons were wild. None more infamous than the Cerebral Boar, a skull-drilling nightmare that was equal parts brutal and hilarious. It was darker and bloodier than most players expected on a Nintendo console, with sprawling single-player maps and a multiplayer mode that felt faster and meaner than GoldenEye. Its unique mix of sheer scale and over-the-top violence made it the N64's ultimate hardcore shooter. For years, Sin and Punishment was like a secret only a few fans knew about, because it never left Japan when it launched. Those who managed to play it discovered a lightning-fast rail shooter with slick controls and some of the most intense boss fights on the system. It pushed the N64 to its absolute limits, delivering an arcade thrill right at home. Eventually, it gained cult status worldwide, thanks in part to a dedicated fan translation that let more players finally experience it. Today, it stands as one of the console's most treasured hidden gems. The idea of Resident Evil 2 running on a cartridge felt almost impossible, yet somehow Capcom pulled it off. They squeezed the full PlayStation classic onto the N64 without losing the haunting atmosphere or tense survival gameplay. Creeping through Raccoon City, juggling scarce ammo, and facing down terrifying monsters was just as intense as ever. Even more impressive, the port added extra options and features you didn't see anywhere else. It proved the N64 wasn't just about kid-friendly fun, it could handle pure survival horror at its finest. Few games captured raw speed like F-Zero X. This was fast, brutal, and unforgiving racing where one mistake could send you flying. With 30 racers on screen, the frame rate stayed buttery smooth, keeping the adrenaline pumping from start to finish. The track designs pushed players to take insane risks, while the aggressive AI made every victory feel earned. It might not have had flashy graphics, but it didn't need them. The sheer rush of speed was unmatched. For fans of high-octane racing, it was pure perfection.
On a console dominated by platformers and shooters, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2 carved out its own legend. Landing combos, grinding rails, and chaining tricks into huge scores created an addictive rhythm that players couldn't put down. The N64's version missed some of the iconic soundtrack, but the gameplay was still spot on, making even newcomers feel like skateboarding pros. Its mix of accessible fun and deep mastery turned it into one of the most beloved sports games ever made, and it's still remembered as the peak of the series. Rare loved to experiment, and Force Gemini was proof of that. It blended third-person shooting with exploration across colorful alien worlds, all while throwing in the quirky task of rescuing tiny Ewok-like creatures. The controls felt awkward to some players, but the variety of weapons, massive levels, and unique style kept it engaging. It wasn't as polished as Rare's other hits, but it built a dedicated following over the years. Looking back, it feels like one of the N64's most bold and ambitious experiments.
Mario Tennis. Mario Tennis proved Nintendo could make even a sport game feel like a party. Easy to pick up, but surprisingly deep. It let you pull off ridiculous trick shots while still feeling like real tennis. The roster oozed personality, and it introduced Waluigi, a character nobody asked for, but everyone remembers. Playing with friends was chaotic, competitive, and full of laughs, the kind of match where someone always begged for just one more round. It turned tennis into pure Nintendo magic. Mystical Ninja Goemon didn't get the spotlight in the West, but those who found it discovered something special. Mixing platforming, RPG-style exploration, and a big dose of Japanese humor, it felt completely unique. The characters were eccentric, the world was colorful, and the giant robot battles were just pure joy. Its mix of quirky comedy and genuine adventure gave it a cult following. For players willing to dive in, it was like stepping into a Saturday morning anime brought to life.
The blow of battle. What's next? The hit glanced right off.
For kids in the late 90s, Pokémon Stadium 2 was a dream come true. Suddenly, your favorite Pokémon weren't just sprites on a Game Boy screen, they were battling in full 3D, with animations that made them feel alive. Transferring your own team from the handheld games gave it a personal touch, like seeing your partners on the big stage. Add in the mini-games, which became legendary at sleepovers, and you had a mix of spectacle and party fun that kept fans hooked. It was Pokémon made larger than life.
A furious attack! That's it!
Wave Racer 64 was more than just racing on water. It was a technical showcase. The physics were groundbreaking, with waves that moved and crashed realistically, forcing you to adjust your balance constantly. Every course had its own rhythm, and mastering the water felt rewarding. It was sleek, simple, and endlessly replayable, the kind of game you could fire up for 5 minutes or lose an entire afternoon to. Riding those jet skis through sunny courses captured pure arcade joy, but with surprising depth under the surface. Kirby's adventure on the N64 stayed true to his side-scrolling roots, but added a clever new twist: power combos. Mixing abilities created some wild surprises, like firing arrows or explosive ice skates, letting you experiment just for fun. The worlds were bright and cozy, full of that trademark Kirby charm, but still offered secrets and challenges for completionists. It wasn't the flashiest N64 title, but it was pure comfort gaming. Combining powers gave the series fresh life, and that's what players WWF No Mercy is still remembered as the king of wrestling games. With its deep grappling system, branching storylines, and huge roster, it had everything fans wanted during the Attitude Era. Matches were strategic, timing and positioning mattered more than button mashing. Plus, you could make your own superstar, which almost always ended up being some ridiculous creation. Throw in multiplayer chaos, and you had friendship suplexed into the floor. Even today, wrestling fans swear this is still the champ. Harvest Moon 64 was the exact opposite of most N64 games. While everyone else was blasting aliens, you were watering turnips and trying to impress the local villagers. Day by day, your little farm grew, animals got fatter, and the townsfolk slowly warmed up to you. It was cozy, relaxing, and secretly addictive. The kind of game where you'd say, just one more day, and suddenly it's sunrise in real life. It proved that on N64, you didn't need explosions to have a blast. Bomberman 64 The Second Attack took the simple drop bombs and don't blow yourself up formula and said, let's go bigger. Suddenly you were in an adventure with puzzles, power-ups, and even a little alien sidekick to help out. It was creative, it was quirky, and yes, you still accidentally blew yourself up at least 10 times an hour. It didn't get the attention it deserved, but for fans, it was proof Bomberman could do more than party games. Mario Party 2 is where the series really hit its stride, and also where friendships went to die. The themed boards and silly costumes gave it personality, while the minigames kept everyone on edge. Just when you thought you were winning, a sneaky player stole your star, and suddenly you're questioning why you invited them over. But that was the beauty of it. Win or lose, it was all laughs. Well, except for the guy who got hit with 3 Bowser spaces in a row. Star Wars Rogue Squadron was every Star Wars kid's dream. You weren't just watching X-Wings on screen, you were piloting them, blasting TIE fighters, and pulling off crazy trench runs. The missions felt cinematic, the controls were smooth, and every dogfight made you feel like a hero. Unlocking bonus ships was the cherry on top, because who doesn't want to fly the Millennium Falcon? Sure, you weren't actually saving the galaxy, but admit it, you hummed the Star Wars theme while playing. That's the list, the 30 best the N64 had to offer. Thanks for hanging out and reliving the glory days of 64-bit gaming. Drop your favorite N64 memory down below, and if you're into retro countdowns, stick around, we've got plenty more coming.